Exactly. Got it. We're being live. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
So I'm here with Annie Michelle and Kathy, and we are starting on page 45. We're being live. Welcome, everybody. There we go. There. And so, yeah, we'll just jump right in. I just want to share a little tiny bit about what you were just talking about, Kathy. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kathy was just talking about how she sent a message on our thread yesterday saying, if you would just be more clear, God, it would, or Jesus, we wouldn't be so confused down here trying to figure it all out.
Right.
Right. And it's so
Yeah.
true because even when you read the Bible, it's like there's so many different interpretations of what you're reading. And the Course of Miracles is just not far off of that. And sometimes the truth will like shoot right through and there's no doubt and we just know it. And then other times you're reading stuff and it's like, what does that mean?
Right.
And so then Kathy was kind of doing some automatic writing and asking God directly, like, come on, why did it have to wait this long? And then started having images of all these beautiful, wonderful things that have happened throughout your lifetime. And it was a communication of, there were all of these beautiful, wonderful things all along, but because you're focusing on the not so beautiful things, sometimes you miss out on, these little tiny miracles that are happening in our lives all the time.
And it also showed me or God, I guess, showed me that it wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about the timing for me, because I know that I'm saying, I'm 53 years old now. Why does it take so long? Because it's not just about me. Because what I started thinking about immediately after is the changes that I see in other people around me. So not necessarily my spiritual family, but people who would have been exactly where I was, that didn't look at spirituality, that didn't believe in it, but I see little changes everywhere. They're meditating or they're talking about doing positive affirmations or something, and it's like he was showing me that all of these things, the reason why there's timing is because everything happens for different reasons, and it's divine timing. And it's not just about me, it's about the collective and how I change things when I am happier, when I discover something and I share it. That's what it's about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love this because, the conversations that we have, the more that we have them, the more we get used to using the language
Yeah.
and doing the practices. It's like it just bleeds into all of those relationships so
Yep.
organically. And that in itself is a miracle.
It is a miracle. Yeah.
It truly, truly is. Yeah, I was out with a friend last night and we were talking about this very thing. She was talking about how, she spent most of her life being the only spiritual person around, that she was the only one. And I look back at my journey and I've always sought out people who were very spiritual. Like if I found myself without, I would go to places where I could find, so that I could always have those conversations. They were always really important to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And, even like moving to new cities and going to those places, like if it was like crystal bowl ceremonies or going to the health food store, like just always putting myself in situations where it was possible to meet people who were having those conversations. Right. So it was just, it's just one of those things that it's all about your point of view and what you like, looking at abundance, that it's always there. You just have to reach
That's
out
right.
and grab it.
And what it is, that abundance is not necessarily a new car. Abundance is having your family for Christmas, having something under the tree, whether it be, an orange or an Xbox, those things, being grateful. That's what this book has been teaching me a lot about gratefulness and just being kind to other people and not realizing that, we're all brothers and sisters. The judgment for me, man, this chapter, it was crazy for me. It took everything to understand it. I had to keep reading it over and over. And it's like, wow, why is it so hard? But it's important. There's a lot of important messages in this chapter.
There really is, especially beyond perception. I found myself reading that section. Like I probably read it at least 10 times.
Yes. Yes.
What about you, Annie? Did you find the same thing?
It's just because I'm a bit farther in the book now. I'm just trying to like remember exactly what this one was about. Beyond perception.
Yeah.
I can't say specifically for this, but in general with the book, like it is a life-changing read for sure. And I'm feeling the shift is happening slowly. It might take a couple years even for the complete shift, but slowly I'm definitely seeing the world through a new light.
Right. Nice.
Kind of always remembering when I start to worry about that, you know, that nothing real can be threatened and that everything's fine and we already have everything that we need, and that unity like Kathy was talking about, just remembering how we're all one and we can't leave anyone behind. So as soon as you have negative feelings towards someone, we're not going forward together, you know?
Right.
Constantly forget though, every day, like
every day.
Put it in practice in this situation when I had the chance, but I'm starting to realize, even if I'm not changing my actions quite yet, I'm being more conscious at the moments where I could have acted differently, you know?
Oh, wow. But that's good. That's a start. You got to start somewhere, right? And I think we're all that way in some sense. Nothing happens overnight and our emotions get in the way for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So do we want to jump in?
Sure.
All right. So we're on Beyond Perception page. Well, actually it's on page 44, not 45. Sorry. And the first one that I have highlighted is like the very first line. So I've said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of the real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since.
Right. Sounds right.
True. And the thing that I've been trying to really wrap my mind around is understanding perception, understanding when I'm in perception.
Right.
I think that's been really almost difficult to identify at times.
Because it's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very much like the truth. That's the problem, because it's the ego, and the ego is strong too, equally strong. And because we created it, so we obviously comes from strength, and it's very believable. So sometimes it's hard to separate that, isn't it? Like to stop and say, okay, was that my ego? I think again, it comes back to outcome.
Okay, explain what you mean by that outcome.
So I think for me, the outcome between ego and God, when you're coming from the ego, the outcome is going to be different, or maybe it's the same, but usually there's an intent of lack, from what I understood. So when you're coming from the ego, it's based on lack. But here's the thing: when I was reading this, I thought, okay, but what would be your reason for doing it if it wasn't for lack? Because they talk about inventions, they talk about, inventions or perceptions, which I was like, okay, but aren't we here to evolve? Is that not the goal, is to evolve? Yeah. So do we need the perception in order to attain that actual goal? Do we need to feel that we lack something in order to make that change?
So interesting. I think, and it's true that even like the inventions and the evolving that we're doing, I think that is just as necessary as like the connection to God and what, you know what I mean? Because I mean, right now, maybe they're very, very far away, but isn't it to bring those two together as God and perception become one?
Can they though? Because I thought the ego and God could never meet. They're
That's
so
true.
opposite. So I don't know. I was a little confused by that statement.
Mhm.
What do you think, Ani?
I'm reflecting as well because I also think that I read that they cannot.
Yeah, they can't. I've read that too.
Right. Opposites.
Mhm. But I mean, isn't there a perception of carrying out God's work too? Isn't that a perception all on its own?
Right. Because, but you're perceiving it because you're not, but we are God. So is it a perception? Because, do you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big rabbit hole right there, I feel.
I feel like I might need to look that one up later.
I know.
Once we have the shift in perception that the book is helping us gain, we're just naturally gonna be carrying out God's mission because we're gonna be the vessel where that whatever, like he's gonna be kind of directing us, as he says a couple times, to be able to carry out that mission. I think it's just gonna happen naturally, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, a natural progression. I'll tell you though, it's really difficult to not have like any kind of ambition or like plans as to what to do. Like,
Right? I'm supposed to just do what now? Sit and wait for things to happen? But then it says everything you do today is building your future for tomorrow. But if I'm not supposed to do anything, I'm just supposed to trust, what am I supposed to do?
That's where
and
trust comes in, I feel.
yeah, exactly. And that's when you find yourself in action and you're doing it without you're not even thinking about it.
Ah, okay.
Like an
Okay.
easy, yeah, because I found that happened a few times in there as well of just becoming easy and find myself doing things. And then it's not a push to do it, it's just a natural finding yourself like you're in the middle of it and you're like, oh yeah, well here I am doing it. Like
Yeah,
so
that's true. So obviously, like maybe you were guided to do that without, so being more open. Those daily practices of meditation, all of those things are things that are going to keep your mind healthy, more open to these messages, right?
mhm, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. The next one that I have is paragraph 2, line 4. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation.
Right.
So, yeah, when we are believing in the fact that we are lacking in something, we're believing in the separation that we're not one.
But again, for me, that comes back to, if it wasn't lacking, why would we do it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's a need. Like we look at, okay, let's say any kind of business. If we're lacking doctors, someone will become a doctor to help humanity. But that's a lack. So is
And that's the reason why somebody becomes the doctor, because
right.
there's need.
Right.
I don't know, because I feel that that's the mindset of like judging a situation instead of just trusting and just being like, oh, what it's meant to be, and just being versus being like, doctors, let's search for doctors. So it's just in the way of kind of perceiving it.
I love that. That makes sense. Yeah.
Like if this is the amount of doctors that we have now, it's because that's what it's meant to be. I trust, so I'm not judging the situation or the amount of doctors that we have available. And if more show up, it's going to happen. If they don't, then it's just, this is how it is, right?
Right.
I suppose too, it comes back to finding your purpose. And if your purpose fulfills you to be a doctor and you've always dreamt of being a doctor, that's the difference than doing it out of lack. Look at that. I think we answered our own question.
Yeah. And it also increases a balance in other areas, right? So our ideas of doctor too can shift and change.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can't need them anymore because you have something else that's an equivalent in a way that you wouldn't have even have known before.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Me too.
Okay, so there's at the same paragraph, line 8, the highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations.
Where is that, Linda? Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to go back even further. It's paragraph 2, same paragraph. 6. So none of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. So it's just like what you were saying earlier, where they say like any kind of inventions or ingenious forms that have come into reality are not abstract creations of God.
Right.
But this is the thing that this is where I'm sitting with this, right? Is technology. So the technological experiences that we're having, they're coming into creation because they're in our DNA, right? So our DNA comes from all of these other beings, and those things come into reality because it's in our DNA to do it. It's like a remembering. It's like those our ancestors had it, and therefore we can have it.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. But now what this is saying is that even those other beings are not always creating with God.
Right.
Right. So even these technological advances and these rememberings and inventions, those were never creations of God then.
No, because they were created by human beings, right?
Or beings of some sort.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't even have to be human.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And then it brings you to question, like, okay, so then those are not creations of God. Okay, so we get that. They're not creations of God. So, and then our physical reality, because it talks about how God is not connected to any thinking that we might be doing. So any emotions that are connected to like the darker side, so anger, frustration, sadness, like all of those, like God is not even aware. Like that's not even part of his mind, right? That's what we read earlier on.
Yes.
Yet, you know, it's just, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to put some stuff together about like how these beings and how, you know, these manifestations are coming into our world. And, you know, there's no connection to God. Like there's actually a complete disconnect between what we're actually experiencing and what God knows as reality.
Yeah, that's, I find that a bit confusing, I'll be honest, because it doesn't, I don't know, it's like, because we're human, but we're also God. So we're creating from God. So I think there was a part where it talked about making versus creating. Creating and making are not the same thing. Creating is from God and making is from your human side, your ego. So, but at the same time, when you read, let's say, the Celestine prophecies, it talks about how we're meant to evolve and how chapters of this were actually documented on today's evolution, the technology that was there. So obviously that technology was meant to come out. So who is guiding them to do this? You know, if it's not God, is it the ego? Because that doesn't seem like it would make sense.
Mhm.
So the ego would serve a purpose that was also needed, right?
Yeah, well, when you study the ancient cultures, and the whole reason why Jesus came was to break the bond between other beings and humans that were developing on the planet, because all of the ancient cultures were connected to the gods, not God,
Okay.
right? So they were all connected to these gods who were, you know, not forcing them, but influencing them to use magic and
Right.
different means of gaining God intelligence, right? So then when Jesus came, it was to break all of those bonds and connect everybody to God.
Right. To
So,
kind of put an end to it, to kind of put an end to the nonsense of it, that you don't need to sacrifice humans, you don't need to, right? So to clarify, maybe, do you think kind of God was brought to just unify?
unify, or just to make people recognize that they weren't connected to that God, the
Okay.
oneness of God.
Right. They were connected to the idea of what they thought was God and the perception.
Well, and they were connected to gods, and they were they were um, you know, kind of duped into thinking that if they made those gods happy, their life would be prosperous and happy,
Right.
which
Right.
never happened.
No.
Like, I don't think that, you know, there were like prosperous reigns of where the people grew and they expanded, but destruction always came.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, there's just very interesting thought patterns around, you know, so then we can psychically be connected to any god, not any god, but any of those gods that
Yeah.
we were connected to in those early civilizations.
But would you agree that even if you look at this, made me think a little bit when I went to see Avatar, because coming back, to be honest, I was sad. I was so sad. I was like, you know what? Even Avatar shows that there's so much war and they have to ruin everything beautiful. And I was reminded that that's not the only thing that happened in the movie. They learned to become a unit. They learned that, you know, and like you said, there's different gods and there's different things that they believe in, but I believe there's a purpose to all of it. Even if you think about the Catholic religion or any religion, I don't want to use Catholic, but so many things happened where there were, you know, questions and it was questionable actions, but there was a lot of good too. It gave people hope. It gave people unity. It gave people, you know, when they said it takes a village to raise. Well, in those villages, that's exactly what they did. You know, the whole families would gather and raise these children. So maybe not all the idealisms were correct, but I think they were onto something. I think people really did find God. I think they just elevated it to a different level where they took advantage of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if that was a little off topic, but
No. It's good. It's good. All right. Let's keep going. Paragraph 3. Sentence number 5. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation.
yeah, I love that. And it tells you that you're unstable. It does.
I know. It's funny. So, okay. All right. So let's go. Paragraph 4. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. And
yeah.
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 Yeah. And that's, I found, and the reason why I highlighted that, because in my early like awakenings and in my early 20s, that was a constant question of mine. Like, what the stink am I doing here?
Right.
Why am I here? What is this experience I'm going through? Like, What do you want from me?
Right. So obviously it's our goal to listen, our job to listen to what that is, not make up our own version of what we want it to be, and to truly follow our rightful path. And I think knowing that is to be happy in your day to day, and enjoying life and doing the things that we're supposed to do, living life the way we were meant to live our life, not constantly struggling. If you're constantly struggling and hating what you do, you're not in the right place.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. And I also feel that if every morning we would answer this following question differently, like, who am I? And instead of being like, oh, I'm Annie, I work as a nutritionist, and like having all these identities, but instead, if the answer was, I'm a light being that's on the planet to do God's mission, my day would be very different than answering it the first way. You would act differently.
Absolutely. You're right. It sets a mindset.
A very different mindset. And we tend to more associate ourselves with those, like what I own and what job I have, and like, then remembering who we truly are.
Yep.
Yeah, very powerful statement. That is so true. And, those morning thoughts and meditations are so powerful in setting us up for what we're going to be and do. Okay, so I have paragraph 5. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So many different, but that's the whole point, is like when we're trying to understand these concepts, it's, again, maybe it's just not understanding at all.
It's
knowledge. It talks a lot about knowledge too. Paragraph 5, going to line 7. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go.
ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Just being able to, So because what we think we know, right? Mm-hmm. We hold on to that so tightly, and we're not meant to. We're meant to just absorb it, see it, let it go, flow through the system. Yeah. It's when we start hanging on to those perceptions that we get into trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. That is, and that is something that I've recognized in my own life at certain periods, when you have these like knowings that wash over you, and you get on a path because of that, and you start going, and then, everything starts to build onto that. And I think that's when it starts to become a perception. And then it's like letting that perception go, because everything needs to be able to crash if it needs to.
Right. Yes. Because we always perceive bad to be bad, but it's not. It's just a polarity. It's good, bad. We have it in life. That's the way it is. You have to let go of the idea that we are meant here to just live perfectly happy lives. We're not. Yeah. We're meant to live sorrow. We're meant to live grief. We're meant to live anger, but not to hold it for life.
Exactly.
To move away from it at some point. But again, it ain't easy. They don't make this easy.
All you can do is develop tools. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's it. And then the beginning of the 6th one is, and I love this, prayer is a way of asking for something. It is a medium of miracles, but the only meaningful prayer is of forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. But then it goes on, the next, I think, line 5, the prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have.
What do you think that means?
Okay, I've been pondering this so much, because like forgiveness for me is like the pinnacle of everything. Yeah. So the thing is, the reason why forgiveness is even a thing is because we gain these perceptions of either lack in ourselves or lack in others.
Okay.
And when we're asking for forgiveness, we're recognizing the abundance that's in ourselves and in others.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like a shift in perception of like going from, well, it's not even, it's like breaking apart the perception that you've held through like a trauma or, you know, whatever. And, you know, forgiveness to me is not even, it doesn't even have to be a traumatic experience.
Right.
It can just be like, oh, I just had a really strange conversation with my mom and I just need to like do some forgiveness work because my perception is not in alignment of abundance.
Oh, oh, I love that, Linda. Yes. And that's exactly what you're right, because it has to be, if you're asking for forgiveness, you're not in alignment with your true self. You're perceiving. So by asking for forgiveness in every situation, you're not saying, hey, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I don't know where I was going with that. It's true. It's like
it's remembering who we really are and who
and
like,
realizing that we're all, even if it's, let's say in a situation where your mother wronged you, you have to be able to forgive her, but to forgive yourself for your part, because we're all a collective. Our thoughts are all intertwined. So if it happened, you were part of it. And your part may just be that you perceived it to be something else. So by forgiving that, letting that go, you allow yourself to be open to the next lesson.
Yeah.
Right? That makes sense?
I think so.
Okay. We don't know. We're just.
What are you thinking, Annie?
It was a part that I was having a hard time understanding, like forgiveness of what? Of not remembering at that moment that everything was perfect. Like I'm not sure what they mean. At this
I think that's it, though. I think you nailed it. Is that remembering who you are, that this is perception. You don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, only because so much suffering comes from the fact that we don't see everybody as being divine beings.
100%. Yeah.
But I'm surprised that they would want us to ask forgiveness for that for some reason. I like it.
Yeah. See, now the idea of forgiveness is that you've done something wrong.
Right.
That's a wrong perception about forgiveness. And this has been my biggest mission, is trying to help people understand that forgiveness is not about being that you've done something wrong or that somebody's done something wrong. It is a distorted way of thinking that you're asking for the truth way of thinking. That's what forgiveness is.
Really? Wow. That's interesting. That's a great way to look at it. Okay.
What was that, Annie? You want me to say it again?
Yeah.
So forgiveness is asking for the truth of the situation, in the truth inside of yourself and inside of the other people involved, and sometimes about God. Like I've done a lot of forgiveness work around God. And the thing is we get these ideas that forgiveness means, oh, it's okay. You did that to me. It's okay. You know, that is not real, true forgiveness. Real, true forgiveness is being able to like see the big picture and say, oh, okay, you did that because of that in your timeline. I needed to learn that because of this in my timeline. And that's why we've come together. And now I understand. Now I can let go of the emotion. Now I can learn the lesson. Now I can adjust the way that I think.
Okay. Wow.
When we're like in a situation and we see, oh, you've done me wrong. And we just are holding on to, okay, this, you've done me wrong. It's like, you know, you're not going. Sometimes forgiveness comes to the fact that that person doesn't belong in your life. And that's okay.
Right.
You know,
Right.
forgiveness doesn't mean you're saying it's okay, you can be in my life and do it again. It means learning and adjusting the way that you think so that you're in alignment with yourself, and choosing the best choice for everybody involved sometimes means removing that person from your life.
And I mean, it comes back to judgment too, right? Because
Discernment.
discernment. We're full of judgment. We judge everything and everyone, and it's not our job.
Exactly.
But that's where that comes in. We would not need to forgive if we just realize that they are just living their lives and doing what they need to do for their journey, same as what we are.
Exactly.
But that's not always easy to see, because can you forgive, like The Shack? I love that movie because the comparisons are so high. You know, every one of us can put ourselves in one of those situations. Someone just killed your child. Okay, now you're asking me to forgive them. Whew, you know, it's a tough one, you know, and I don't know if you've seen the movie, but in certain parts she'll ask, do you forgive the serial killers who kill children? No, we can't forgive them. They're bad. Where does it end? You know, how did they get there? But it's still, as our human mind, I'm not sure, it's hard to process those feelings the way they're meant to be processed. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's what forgiveness does. So when we hold on to the intention of forgiveness, we're allowing ourselves to open up to inspired thinking.
Okay.
So, and inspired thinking to me is alignment with God. That's the atonement.
Yes.
And so we have to understand that, you know, and I felt this so much when I watched the Jeffrey Dahmer thing. I felt for him so much because he had to live a role that was necessary, and whatever reason our timeline and those people that he was like, those contracts were necessary for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Right. He hated it. He didn't want that life. Like when they arrested him, he said, I should be murdered for what I've done. Wow. Take me off this planet, get me out of this ride. That's what he was asking. Like he was asking several times, like you even see him, he's sitting with his dad and saying, like, there's something not right here. It's not right. It's not, something's not good here. You know, like that was his path. Why? Who knows? He didn't like it. He knew it was wrong.
Maybe in a past life, he suffered from someone, you know, there was a murder and he had to see the other side. Maybe his karmic lesson was to be able to see both sides of the coin, see it from another perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we're meant to do, right? To try to live a different way. So I think if you were maybe an abuser, maybe your next life you're being abused. And so you get to live both sides of that coin. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, like he knew it was wrong. He knew, but the compulsion, that was his path. There's nothing he could do. He tried.
But doesn't that come back to how we, you know, a thought is only a thought and a thought can be changed?
And yeah, absolutely.
Like, don't we still have free will? Like, you know, if he had a thought, you know, had he sought out help or,
and he tried, but he didn't know who to turn to. He was telling his dad things were not right. He didn't know who to turn to. But the ultimate thing that came out of it was that for whatever reason, he was living out whatever purpose he was supposed to live out for this life for him. Wow. It's just such a, what's that?
Was he had lost perception of the only true thing that exists, which is love, and he was being kind of directed by the ego in a way. So that was his mistake. So I feel that he had the choice to remember, like, you know what, I don't know if you guys understand, that lost the real perception, which the book is trying to remind us, because nothing is real except for that. So even what he was playing out isn't real, but he was really lost in the illusion of his life. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
That's exactly, like, it's like a schizophrenic, like where you disconnect from reality and you're like in a completely different altered state of like thinking,
Yeah.
you know?
But
So that was his reality for him.
Mhm.
exactly. But I feel that he had the choice. He was just too caught up in the ego, which like, it's not a blame and I'm not judging him. Like it's unfortunate. And a lot of us are caught up, obviously, but I feel that he did have the choice.
Mhm. Well, we all do. We're all given we're all given like circumstances that can help us to heal.
Right.
And go back into that atonement with God. We're all given that circumstance. We're all given that choice.
But like you said, depending on upbringing, depending on, it's much easier for someone to believe in God when they were brought up in a godly family where people were loving and kind to each other than someone who was beaten to a pulp on a day-to-day and didn't believe in anything, that was told, you know, there's no God, or this is it, this is your life, it's the best you got. So, and that's unfortunately things that do happen.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how these people are not created, but how they're swayed to where they end up.
Yeah. Sorry to bring that up. I was like, you know, it's so interesting how we're all here to live out these experiences, and, you know, we're given opportunity, yet are we taking the opportunity? But, you know.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I love the on 44. Sorry, I just want to go back. One of the things I had wrote down, many are called, few are chosen. Should be all are called, but few choose to listen. They do not choose, right? I love that because it's true. We're all chosen. We all think. Because have you had people say that to me, like, or say that to you? My sister-in-law will say, "Oh my God, such cool things happen to you." I can't believe, like, how do you know angels exist? How do you know? And I said, well, because this happened. That's so cool, you know, but everyone's able to do it. And we just don't realize it. Some of us are more far advanced, and some of us are not far advanced at all, but we all have the ability. It's just funny that we all think this is like this magical thing that can happen, where, again, I learned to talk to God yesterday. 53 years old, right? So we're all here for the same purpose.
It's so true. And I love that line too. It's such a powerful line because it's so true. Like those magical things are happening to everybody.
Yes.
It's just a question on if we're recognizing that it's happening or not.
Absolutely. And paying attention and be willing to believe it.
Willing to believe it is such a huge thing.
Because how many times you see stuff and you're like, no, that didn't happen. That must have been something else. Or you can just believe that it happened.
Yeah.
Right? But we're so taught that religion is wrong and this is wrong and we're all crazy. And it's hard to put it all into perspective and see it as the right way when it's been taught to be the wrong way. That, you know, you were being duped if you were religious.
Yeah. You know, I thought this was really funny. I remember asking this question to somebody at one point is, you know, the people who've written the Bible and they say that they've had like this really close commune with God. What, did that stop?
Right.
Is there nobody in the world listening to God anymore that we have to like, and the other thing that I find really interesting is we have this book that tells us, you know, that this is the truth and this is what we have to live by. But, you know, at the same time, they're telling you in this book that, you know, once you have a perception, that perception can break down and build a new one. And you know what I mean? Like that, you know, when God gives you inspiration and we have this beautiful ideas and this new way of thinking and all of that, and then we kind of go on that train and we're kind of chucking along. And then something happens that breaks that down and we're going on another train. So like how, you know, the Bible and everything, and it does have beautiful truths in it, but I don't know. It's just such a hard thing to be able to wrap your mind around that those people were getting those inspirations and nobody else ever has since.
Right. Or they haven't talked about it.
Yeah. Or they're just not allowed in the Bible because we have beautiful people writing beautiful books now.
We
You know,
absolutely do.
there's Eckhart Tolle, that the Power of Now, A New Earth, like those two books, like completely can shift your consciousness into a huge like ahas moments. Like they're so powerful.
The
you
Power
know?
of Now. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good book. And then we have like so many different other ones, but why aren't they being included into like the Bible now?
Well, because religion is different, right? The Bible is a perception of whatever religion that it's attached to. It's
Yeah.
funny how you only have one Bible, but they're all different gods. You know, all their names are different. You only have one Bible, but this was excluded in one, this was added in another. I think religion has its place. I always did. I think if it makes you
Absolutely.
happy and helps you live your life in a positive way and you become a kind, happy person, God love you. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's just about, you know, being happy and finding your true purpose and not hurting others and in the process of all that.
Absolutely. Okay, so if we go down to paragraph 7, line 5, perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more and less. At every level, and it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. Like,
yeah,
I'll tell you, it's extremely difficult not to have perception.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. Such a hard thing to wrap your mind around.
Well, it's hardwired, right? We perceive everything. We're meant to be independent thinkers. We're meant to make decisions and create based on our knowledge of what we think is correct. So we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So true. It's such a, like the thing that got me about that is like we're continually processing of accepting, rejecting, organizing, reorganizing, shifting and changing. It's like a constant evaluation that's happening. That's what perception is.
Yeah.
That's such a, okay. Did you want to say anything about that, Annie?
I think my internet cut off for a moment, so I missed the last part, but that's okay.
Yeah, we were just talking about, I was reading paragraph 7, line 5, where it was talking about perception, on the other hand, is impossible without belief in more and less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing, reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select.
Right.
It's almost like it contradicts itself on every second page. Just when you think you got it figured out. It's like, nope.
Well, and like it's even just saying that, just even the idea, like even the idea of opening up and allowing our mind to connect to the fact that God is there and that miracles are a possibility is an evaluation.
Yeah.
Like the very thing, I don't know. My mind gets twisted up in so many different ways on these concepts.
It really does. Yeah, me too.
Okay, so line 8 on page 46, there's, you who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know him.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Mm-hmm. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power.
So basically it comes down again is judgment. That's, oh, okay. Yeah, the next paragraph is judgment. So judging people based perception.
Yeah, and on separation too.
Yeah.
Like as I was saying too earlier about, you know, when we were talking about, you know, say there's something that took place with my mom that's not really sitting well with me, right? It's recognizing like she's part of the collective, like we have the same energy inside of us.
Yeah.
That, you know, we're all one. So let's just heal that, whatever it is that's creating a wedge. So it's like atoning the thinking.
Yes,
Right.
I think back to what we were talking about earlier, because it kind of defines forgiveness here, which is the healing of the perception of separation. So let's say you were talking about those murderers earlier. It's in a way that's just one part of us that we need to accept and let enter, and like, so just, yeah, that kind of answers our question from earlier, I feel.
It does actually. Yeah.
Is there anything else that we wanted to go over in that section?
No, not for me, I don't think.
I really just at the end of this section when it says your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I love that. I think that part goes on too, in that I talking about, oh, I can't find it now.
Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's 1 o'clock.
Holy smokes. That was quick. I think we had 2 pages, Linda. Annie.
But that section was so hard. Like that was a heavy section. Like I read that section probably like 10 or 15 times alone.
Easily.
Like,
yeah.
It was just a really powerful section. So we'll be starting on page 46 next time we re-adjourn.
Okay.
For the judgment and the authority problem.
That's going to be a deep too, because I'll tell you, I probably have 30 or 40 highlighted areas in there.
Yeah, and I think we need to go into more of what judgment is anyway.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
You know? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies. If you enjoyed this talk, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we hope to see you again soon.
Bye.